Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Ruger-Morowski. I am the Associate Director of Partnerships at Parker Dewey, and I'm excited that I get the opportunity today to connect with all of you here in the room and tell you a little bit more about Parker Dewey and our education partnership options. So, as you can see from the poll, whether you are totally new to Parker Dewey, already a partner, but looking for a refresh, or maybe just a partner or a potential partner, whatever it may be, we are excited to have you here. We're going to cover a few different things today, but the basics are going to be first, usually a good practice. So we're going to talk about what is Parker Dewey, how does this work? What is the perspective for your students? What is the perspective for employers? What are the benefits for both? We'll talk a little bit about our partnership options, and that's going to be today's flow. Now, throughout the webinar, I am going to be keeping an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions or if you just want to say hello, please feel free to put those in there too. I'm usually pretty good about being able to keep up, but if not, I will make sure that I catch up at the end. So before getting into exactly what is Parker Dewey, though, I want to set the stage for why Parker Dewey. Why does it exist? And one of the reasons is students we know are facing a lot of challenges when they're trying to launch their careers and build experience. For a little bit of context about why this is so important to me, before I joined the Parker Dewey team, I used to work in career services. And I worked with a lot of students that were really struggling to take that first step or to launch their careers in a full-time role. Some students maybe didn't know what they wanted to do, so they didn't want to jump right into big commitments because they didn't have a lot of context. For other students, logistics were a big struggle. Some didn't have transportation. Some, frankly, just didn't have the time. Non-traditional students, first generation students, student athletes. These are busy people, and they don't always have the time in their schedule to fit in a traditional internship. Then there are some students where finances really were a barrier. Maybe they were finding opportunities, but they were unpaid, and that just wasn't realistic. So these are not intended to be a bummer, but just a reality that I'm sure many of you are very familiar with as well. And all these challenges are why Parker Dewey exists. The other side of things that resulted in Parker Dewey is that employers are facing some challenges too. So some employers may be coming to you saying, we are reaching some great talent when they're juniors or seniors, but they aren't taking the right classes or they don't have this background or this major. Basically, they're realizing that they need to engage students earlier in their first or second year if they want those students to be aware of their industries and their opportunities, so those students can make some of those decisions with those career options in mind. So, struggling to build their pipeline out earlier. There are other companies who are maybe great companies that have some level of awareness, but students don't really realize the depth or the breadth of opportunities available at that company. Maybe they associate them with just one thing and not the many other types of roles that they have available. Maybe they don't have any recognition at all. Maybe students see that logo or hear that company name and they've got no idea. If they've got no idea, typically they're not going to take the initiative to apply to their traditional internship or their full-time role. So students are struggling to get their experience. Employers are struggling to help students understand what opportunities they offer. So that's why Parker Dewey was created to help bridge that gap. So how we are helping all of these parties. We're helping students because we are creating equitable opportunities that those students who don't have a lot of time, who don't have transportation, who maybe don't know what they want to do yet, or maybe do know what they want to do, but are just struggling to get their foot in the door. Micro internships are something that these students can access and that they can do. And I'm going to break down exactly why they are accessible and what our model looks like here in a second. So, how we're helping these employers. Because these micro internships are so appealing and accessible for students, they're also a fantastic way for employers to access, engage, and assess early career talent to see, is this person a good fit for my longer term opportunity, whether that's a traditional internship or a full-time role. And for all of you, our current and potential education partners, we're really excited to help you with your goals because we know that you're trying to help these students launch their careers. Trying to help these employers connect with great talent, and Parker Dewey is a great way to help both parties do that. So, as promised, what exactly are these micro internships that are accomplishing all these things? They are short-term paid professional projects. So, delving into each of those elements a little bit. When we say projects, what we mean by that is there is a specific deliverable. So, there's something that the micro intern is completing and then sending over to the company that posted the project. Typically remotely. Over 90% of these projects are remote, which is one of the things that makes them so accessible. How it works is once selected, they'll connect with the supervisor, they'll get the details for the project, and then when they work on it is really up to the micro intern for the most part, as long as they are hitting the deadline. So for some of your students who do their best work at 3 a.m., micro internships can be worked on at 3 a.m., which isn't a time frame that most traditional internships have available. Now, because they are done once the student is done with that deliverable, these are genuinely short term, usually somewhere between 10 and 40 hours in total. So, again, for busy students, this is something they can still fit into their schedules. And on the other side of things, for your employers, that is a really short amount of time. And especially when you consider the supervision, supervision for a project that short is maybe 1 or 2 hours. This is not a big time commitment for them. So this gives employers a really low risk way to give some of that talent that may not be the traditional model of who they hire to prove that they are a great candidate for those longer term opportunities. Now, these projects can be posted at any time of year. They do not have to be aligned to the academic calendar. And something to note about micro internships is they tend to move very quickly. Most projects kick off within a week or less of when they've been posted. So it's a good rule of thumb to encourage your students to log in regularly. If they only log in once a month, for example, they probably only saw about a quarter of the opportunities that were available to them that month. Something else to be aware of when you're sending students to the platform is many companies will use these projects as an audition. So, what that means is they may hire 5 or 10 micro interns to do the same project, and whoever does the best job will be the one to get that traditional internship or job offer. So, and if a student sees 5 opportunities on the platform, that could actually be 25 or 50 opportunities. Just something to be aware of. Micro internships are also always paid. The big part of our mission, again, is accessibility, and we know a lot of students can't afford to spend their time on something unless that time is compensated. So, how this works is companies can create their accounts and post their projects with no cost or obligation. If they don't get a candidate they're excited about, they close the project and they don't owe anything. But since students are usually excited to engage in this way, typically companies do decide they want to select one or more candidates, and it's only when they do that that the employer receives an invoice from Parker Dewey. The employer pays us, and then we act as the employer of record. So we are getting the micro interns' payroll information. We take care of processing the payroll. We take care of the tax forms if they earn above the threshold. The micro interns are independent contractors on Parker Dewey's books. So what does this do? One, it makes it really easy for the employers. They don't have to worry about all that administrative burden. It gives the student a level of confidence in the safety that their personal information is only with Parker Dewey, so they can feel more comfortable trying opportunities with companies they may not have otherwise been familiar with. 90% of what the company pays ends up in the micro intern's pocket. That 10% difference covers the cost of Parker Dewey acting as the employer of record. And that's also very transparent when the companies post. They know exactly what is going where. And what the students see when they are applying is that 90%. So there's no confusion on their end about what they are earning. We also require that the projects on our platform are professional, and there are different definitions of that word. But for us, it means that they're using skills or knowledge that they would be learning in their degree programs, even if it's in their first or second year. So there might be projects as straightforward as writing a blog post on a specific topic, or there could be things that are more complex, like building a Power BI dashboard, or maybe they're looking for someone to do market research on a potential new market. But there are a variety of projects from all different types of industries and departments. But we all see things like, walk my dog or paint my fence. Nothing wrong with those things, just not what Parker Dewey is intended for. So all of those elements together are what make up Parker Dewey Micro-Internships and give employers a really valuable way to access some of those demographics that may have not otherwise been familiar with them or had the time to engage them in a meaningful way, and to see if their skills and knowledge in action are a good fit for their longer term roles, whether that be traditional internships or full-time opportunities. And on the student side, this short-term experience gives them the insights they need to know, is it worth it for me to rearrange my schedule to make an internship with this company work? Is this an industry I should actually be considering when I'm choosing my major? And it does all that in a really accessible way. So we know budgets across the board are tight for just about everybody right now. So a common question is, all right, I see the value. How much does this cost? So for students, we often refer to them as career launchers because it encompasses recent graduates too. But we want to make it very clear. Money only flows one way when it comes to Parker Dewey and the micro interns, and it is from us to them. There is never any cost for students or recent graduates to create their accounts, apply, or anything of that nature, and all opportunities are paid. For the employers, again, they can create their account and post their projects with no cost or obligation. So creating an account and putting a project out there is genuinely risk-free. It's only if they select their micro intern that they receive an invoice from Parker Dewey for the total cost of the project. And 90% of that cost ends up in the micro intern's pocket. That 10% difference covers, again, those costs of us acting as the employer of record. And we do have some additional program packages available. We're going to talk about our education partnerships a little bit later in this webinar. There are very similar options available to employers, but the basic execution, they are paying for the work that is getting done and to engage the students they do as micro interns. So for you all, our school or nonprofit partners or potential partners, we have a few different partnership options, including an option that is genuinely no cost. So that no cost option, we're going to dig into that a little bit more here, as well as our other partnership options. But before we do, we figure you all might be interested in seeing exactly what the student experience looks like so you can determine if this is something that you want to share with your students and recent graduates. Now, before I dig into the student experience, first want to remind you of Parker Dewey's role in this. We're reviewing the projects. We are the ones that the pay comes from. So we are the employer of record. When the micro intern gets paid, they get paid by Parker Dewey. So that's how it gets added to their LinkedIn and to their resume after they completed the experience. And if they have any questions, concerns, roadblocks along the way, we're also here to be support for them. So that's stated. It's taking a look at the student experience. Now, when they first create their account, what they will be prompted to do is set up a profile. Now, this is very similar to a LinkedIn or a Handshake profile or other profiles of that nature. And the more they make use of the different sections in it, the more it increases their likelihood of selection. So, for example, adding a brief personal statement about their interests and goals, adding some highlighted experience. And I want to make sure it's clear. For many students, a micro internship may be their first professional experience. So this doesn't have to be jobs or internships. This could be class projects, extracurricular projects, passion projects, anything they've done that demonstrates the skills they are hoping to apply to a professional opportunity. Another big one is uploading a resume, even if there's not a lot on it yet. We have seen a strong preference from employers for candidates who have attached a resume to their profile. Now, once they've set up this profile, this is where they can hop over to the dashboard. If you missed where I went up here, you can go back and forth between your dashboard and your profile. And this is where they'll see the opportunities. What they see is going to differ depending on their institution. So if I go back and I switch my education section, I know this school has engaged some employers. So you can see this featured project section right here now has more opportunities than you saw before, and then all open micro internships are underneath it. So what are these two sections? Anything in this featured section has been specifically made available to the student based on something in their profile. Most often, the differentiator is their education. When companies post their projects, they get to decide if they want it to be available to everyone, in which case it would show up in this section, or if they want to feature to specific schools. Most employers are deciding to feature to specific schools, and a lot of that is based on awareness. We're seeing a really strong correlation between our employers who are sharing Parker Dewey as a resource with their employers proactively and our employers who are seeing more projects posted for their students and their students selected more often. When a student is reviewing the opportunities, if they decide that they are interested on a project based on the title, they can hit this details, and this is where they're going to see more information. Now, every once in a while, you may see something like this. For those of you who are watching later, today is December 9th, and what you see here as the start date is December 8th. What this means is the company had hopes to kick off by that date, but maybe they don't have a candidate they're excited about yet, or something may have just held them up a little bit. The point is, even if the start date is a little bit in the past, as long as it's visible, that means they have not made a selection yet, and it is still worth your students' time to apply. The employers have an option on their end. If they didn't want any more applicants, or if they had enough and already were starting to review, they could have paused those applications. So since you can still see it, or your students in this case can still see it, that means it does not hurt to throw their application in. You also see when the company is hoping to have the project done and the estimated total number of hours. Now, this is estimated because micro-interns don't need to formally track their time. They're paid based on completion of the project. But we do ask employers to give a ballpark so we can make sure that whatever they're asking for can reasonably be completed in that time. We also want to make sure that the compensation is appropriate. And again, what the candidate sees here is the 90% of the total cost, meaning this is straightforward what the micro-intern will earn if they are selected for and complete this micro-internship. I see someone asking again, what is the cost to the employer? So the cost to the employer is whatever is paid to the student, and then there's a 10% difference. And what that 10% difference costs is Parker Dewey being the employer of record. So we are managing the platform, we are getting the micro-interns payroll information, we process the payroll, we take care of the tax forms if they earn above the threshold. So that makes everything much easier for the employer. So let's say this number was $360, the total cost to the employer would be $400. In this case, if I'm doing my math right, in this case, what the student sees is $400. The total cost to the employer per micro-intern would be $444 and some change. And that is all very transparent when they're posting, and I'll show y'all what it looks like to post and what they see here in a little bit. So if the student decides they're interested, they can hit apply, and this is going to ask them some questions. The first one is always going to be the same. Why do you think we should select you? Which is why this is a really good one to practice answering with your students. This doesn't have to be an essay, 2 to 4 sentences can be really effective as long as they're giving specific support for why they'd be a good pick. Now, some companies will leave that as the only question. It's up to the company if they decide to ask additional questions and what those questions are. If the project is an audition for a specific longer-term opportunity, they'll often also see some questions to make sure there is indeed interest and availability in whatever that longer-term opportunity is. There are also some brief yes or no questions that the employer does not see the answers to. Now, a question I often get is who is making the selection? And the answer is the employer. Now, sometimes they may say, hey, Parker Dewey, I've got a lot of great candidates. I'm not sure how to make a decision. If they ask for our input, we are always happy to help. But ultimately, it's the company who gets to decide who they are selecting. But they do not see these questions here. These are just for Parker Dewey to know. So with this data, we are able to understand that students are more likely to apply for a micro-internship with a company they haven't heard of before than they are to apply to a traditional internship or a full-time role with an organization that they weren't already familiar with. So again, for your employers who may be trying to reach new talent or build their brand, this is a really great way to do so. Now, when the student submits their application, they can know the status in the Apply tab. If it's under active, that means their application is still being considered. If it is moved to passed, that's how they know that they were not selected for that particular opportunity. Now, we do have some employers who will take the time to respond to every application they receive, but more often than not, companies are using micro internships because they're looking for a quick and effective way to access and assess talent, so they may not respond to every single application. And that's why we have these tabs, so your students can know the status of their applications, and not have to wonder, am I going to hear later, or where does my application stand? Now, once they get selected for the micro internship, that's when they will get the contact information for the professional at the company that has posted the project. They will connect with that person, and we give them resources to help them be successful. Some projects are really straightforward. After that initial kickoff call, it might just be a few emails back and forth. Others are a little more complex. They might involve a few check-ins along the way. But the micro interns are equipped with template emails and agendas to help them professionally communicate what they've done, any questions they may have, and to make sure that expectations are aligned for the remainder of the micro internship. So bringing it back to some of those challenges that we talked about earlier, I won't read you all of these, but you can read yourself, some of the impact that micro internships as an option had for these students who were struggling to figure out what they wanted to do, or to just get their foot in the door, or to find experience that was accessible. And if you enjoy reading about those types of things, you will get the slides afterwards, but I also put those success stories that you could read more about in the chat. So some of our frequently asked questions, and a reminder, folks, we've only had one so far, but if you have questions along the way, please don't hesitate to put those in the chat. A really frequent one, especially nowadays, is can international students do micro internships? And the answer is it depends on the school. Very often, yes, but they do need to have work authorization. So when students are selected, every micro intern gets a micro internship success checklist. And the first thing they see is a reminder that if they are an international student, they need to make sure they have confirmed their eligibility. Now, they are encouraged to do that before they even start applying, but that's just an extra safeguard to make sure they take that step. Now, we, Parker Dewey, again, are the employer of record, regardless of what company they're working with. So for international students that need an offer letter, they will get that offer letter on Parker Dewey's letterhead. And that success checklist also has a link for them to request that form. Now, sometimes there are companies who are using these projects as an audition for a full-time role, and they already know out the gate that they're unfortunately not in a position to be able to offer sponsorship. When that is the case, the project may say in the description that this project is only available to domestic students. So international students are also encouraged to keep an eye on the project descriptions to make sure they're not wasting their time applying for something they're not eligible for. Now, most of the time, that is not the case. They can apply for most of these opportunities, but we just want to make sure that they are using their time wisely. Another population that benefits from micro internships are undocumented students. In many cases, undocumented students can do micro internships as long as they have a valid ITIN number. Many students already have this number just by nature of being claimed on their parents' taxes. So in many cases, it's not even an additional step. It's something that these undocumented students already have. Now, they are able to engage in this way, again, because micro internships are independent contractors, or micro interns are independent contractors of Parker Dewey, which is what makes this accessible to undocumented students. Now, just like with international students, some projects that are additions for something longer term may require U.S. citizenship. Again, that should be noted in the project description. So just encourage your students, as always, to read those descriptions carefully. So now that we have talked about the student experience and how it can help students, find a way to get experience even with busy schedules or without transportation, or to figure out what they want to do, want to shift a little bit and talk about why you should also be sharing this with your employers. So on the employer side of things, again, we are here to assist them if they need help identifying projects. Maybe they are trying to create a pipeline for a longer term role, but they're not sure what project would be a good fit. We are here to assist. If they are trying to reach students from a specific school, as is often the case, if that school is a partner, we will notify that school and make sure they can promote to their students. We are again the employer of record, so the employer doesn't have to worry about that. And if there are any hiccups along the way, and again, this goes for both sides, students and employers, we are here to support. So how things work from the employer side, I'm going to go ahead and open a page. Just one of our many Parker Dewey pages here. So this is an example for a college that just happens to be top of mind because I recently did an update to their page. I see we have a question here. How many students are seeking micro internships? How many opportunities are out there? Are students going to have a tough time landing an opportunity? Okay, so before we get into the employer experience, this is a really good question. So it comes back to what was shared before about employers being able to feature to specific schools. So what we often see is the chances of a student being selected or the number of opportunities they see tend to be really directly correlated to whether that school is engaging their employers, which is why we're about to go over the employer experience, and partnership includes resources to share with employers as well. Now, that's stated, it is not impossible for a student to get selected if they are from a school that's not a partner or not engaging employers. We see students who are from schools who aren't even partners yet get selected all the time, but they just may not be seeing as many opportunities that are relevant to them, which does make it tougher to persist. What we see is as long as a student's profile and applications are thoughtful and complete, and they are applying to projects that are relevant or a good fit for those skills, if they apply to between 5 and 10 projects, anywhere more than 5 applications, their likelihood of selection is more than 3 times as high as those who have applied to less than 5 projects. Typically, if we see a student apply to 10 or more opportunities and they still haven't been selected, when we dig in, we see that they either have an incomplete profile or their application responses aren't thoughtful, or they're kind of just applying for everything, regardless of whether it's a good fit for those skills. So the employer engagement plays an important role in increasing the likelihood of your student selection. I appreciate the question. So going back to the employer experience, what does this look like? I'm going to go ahead and switch over to be logged in as an employer. And when they go to an employer partner page, so again, I'm going to show you what that looks like too. They're going to see some examples of projects. I'm going to use one of these templates just to show y'all how easy it is. So if they click on one of these templates, if they don't have an account yet, they'll be prompted to create one. And it's super easy, takes less than 5 minutes. And the template is putting in the details for what the project is so they can add additional details and add more context, but it's making everything really easy. Now, the automatic start date is a week from when it's posted, since these typically move quickly, but the employer has the ability to adjust those start and end dates based on their needs. The default for the projects is remote for accessibility, but some projects do, by their nature, have an on-site element, so the company can clarify this. Now, we do have some programs. We'll be talking more about programs here in a little bit, but there are sometimes where there may be a third party that is willing to cover the cost for employers. So instead of the employer paying that $400 or $450, there may be a third party that's doing that. So, for example, if anyone in the room is from the state of Indiana, any employer with a presence in Indiana through the Indiana program can engage your students at no cost to the employer. Your students still get paid, but there is a program covering it. So employers can select that if there is a relevant program, but if they're self-funding, they will jump down to applicants. Most of our templated projects, we have them ballparked as taking about 20 hours, and we recommend that students earn somewhere between $20 and $25 per hour take home to make sure that it's accessible and competitive. So for this project, the amount the micro intern would earn would be $400, meaning the total cost of the individual micro intern for the employer would be just under $450. Again, we often see employers who are using this as an audition, so they may select multiple micro interns, which would put that total cost at over $2,200. So obviously there is a cost associated with building a talent pipeline in this way, but what we hear from employers is being able to get these candidate insights and make hiring decisions not just based on a resume or a conversation, but based on real work means that the likelihood that they're selecting a good candidate is significantly higher than other models of recruiting. And ultimately, this cost is way more cost effective than making the wrong hire and then having to start that recruiting process all over. So, money well spent from the perspective of the employer. Now, down here is where the company gets to decide who sees the opportunities. So, if they want to leave it open to everyone, they will leave this blank. If they decide that they want the project to be available to a specific institution, they'll pop that in there, and it means that only that school's students and recent graduates, or maybe just current students or recent graduates, depending on the next section, will see that project. It will be in the featured section of their profile right at the top, and it won't be available to other students. They can also clarify, as I alluded to just a second ago, whether they want to engage solely current students or recent graduates, or if they're open to both. And we love it when employers let us know if this is being used as an audition for something longer term. This is where employers can make those adjustments to the questions, and when they hit post now, it goes to the Parker Dewey team for review. We make sure that the project has a specific deliverable. We also make sure that it is professional and that everything looks on the up and up. Everything seems safe and appropriate. Once we've determined those things to be true, that's when the project is posted and available for students to see and apply to. So, ways that companies are using this. The primary way, the intended way, is as a recruiting tool. So there are kind of two categories under that umbrella. The one is to confirm fit and hire with confidence. And they are making sure that the candidate they have for a traditional internship or a full-time role is actually a good fit for that opportunity based on real work, not just a resume, not just a conversation. So these projects allow them to assess those skills in a real and meaningful way. Another way that employers are using this for a recruiting tool is to extend their talent pipelines. Micro-internships are short and can be straightforward enough that they can engage students in their first or second year at a time when they're typically not ready for the investment or have the level of skills required for a traditional internship. This means that employers are able to build their brand with these students, and these students are able to make decisions with that industry in mind. So, a student who might have otherwise gotten to their junior year, seen an internship in an industry they'd never thought about, and gone, now I don't qualify. I don't have the right major, or, I would need to have had these skills, and now I'm missing out on an opportunity. That company can reach that student when they're a first year student. And now that student has that company in mind. They can make decisions about their classes and their major with that context. So when that internship does come up, not only are they aware of it, but they've made themselves a more competitive candidate. Now, the third way that we see some companies using this is just for on-demand project support. And this is still really beneficial to both the student and employer. So even though it's not necessarily the primary intended use, we're happy to have folks use it in this way. So sometimes alumni might want to just have on-demand project support on something they need to have done. They don't have a longer-term hiring goal. That's okay. It's still great paid experience for the student, and the alumni is still getting project support and the warm and fuzzies from creating an opportunity for that student. Sometimes entrepreneurs might need support. Sometimes there's just a one-off project. Those can all be posted on the Parker Dewey platform as well. For those that are using it as a hiring tool, we find it's helpful for our partners to really understand how this can be used to identify and assess talent that's going to be a good fit for those longer term roles. So one of the things we are always happy to do for your employers is if they are trying to hire for that traditional internship or full-time role, they're welcome to send us the position details, and we will come back to them with customized micro-internship recommendations that are going to help them assess for the skills that role typically needs. So if we look at this example, a company is trying to hire for an entry-level data marketer. There are lots of things they're going to want that data marketer to be able to do. They're going to need to know how to work with data, gather it, analyze it, report it. They're going to need to have some knowledge of content strategy. They're going to need to be able to communicate, to look at what they're seeing, adjust their strategy, and help others understand why they're making those recommendations. So there are a lot of projects that are going to be short, straightforward, and help the company assess those skills. Whether it's doing some data cleanup and visualization, they could do some reporting on content performance. They could do an analysis of some competitive campaigns that company has done. None of these things are going to require onboarding. None of these things are going to be time consuming from the perspective of the employer. But all of these things are going to give them something valuable that's been done. But even more than that, they're going to allow that employer to understand and assess the skills that student possesses and whether those skills are a good fit for that longer term opportunity. And it's something that employers can incorporate into every stage and every time of the year on their recruiting calendar. Before the career fair, micro internships are a great way to generate interest. They could hire a micro intern student ambassador who can promote in their classes. Hey, have you heard of this company? Do you know what they do? Here's why you should visit their table at the career fair. Or if they've already come to campus, depending on when a career fair is happening, there may not be an internship immediately available. I know when I was in career services, I would hear this from students all the time. Why are they at the career fair if they don't currently have something available? It can be tough for employers to, build their brand in a positive way. They want to attend, they want to be there, and you want them to be there. Micro internships give them that flexible way to have an immediately available opportunity. So they're not harming their brand by having a lack of opportunities at their time, and it gives them something immediately actionable that those students can apply to afterwards to keep the connections they've made warm. We've already discussed how it's a great way to evaluate candidates for those longer term roles. And for those employers that, due to geographic or scheduling reasons, are just never realistically going to be able to make it to your campus, it's also a great opportunity for them to be able to still engage your students. So here's one example of how an employer used it. Smith and Nephew is a medical device company, a really cool company, but one that was having trouble getting candidates for the rotational programs. They were finding that students just didn't necessarily knew what they did or what their opportunities were, and they were just having trouble building that pipeline. So they posted a micro internship and said, we just want someone to build a pitch deck for one of our products. Here's where you can look at our products, just put something together. So they got to see kind of the publicly available knowledge and awareness of their product, which was helpful. But even more helpful was seeing these students and some recent graduates, their skills in action. Were they able to communicate their ideas well? Were they able to format it well? Were they able to present it well? And that's really valuable information when considering folks for long-term opportunities. Uh, Five of those micro interns, they extended offers to them and they accepted them because in the course of doing this micro internship, those micro interns realized, I didn't know about this company before, but this is actually a really cool company. I could see myself working here. And this was ultimately really cost effective. Each of these micro interns earned $180 for doing a very short project. So they essentially got paid to interview. And compared to traditional recruiting practices, especially for the conversion, this was a huge win for Smith and Nephew. Train Technologies is another great example. They were trying to deepen relationships with students at a specific school. So they ended up engaging students as campus ambassador micro interns at target schools. Those students were able to do work to help train build their brand with students and make students aware of opportunities and all the cool things they could do at that company. And they saw some really nice outcomes as a result. On the topic of outcomes, we also see some really great things in terms of career readiness for students. So after a micro internship, we do have surveys for both sides, the micro intern and the employer. While they aren't required, they are highly encouraged. And one of the things we ask of the micro interns is for them to assess what, if any, impact do you feel this micro internship had on your career readiness? And we use the NACE career readiness competencies to assess this. So what you can see here is they have the option to say, didn't really make a difference. That's the light blue one, the one that across the board is selected most often, or least often. Then they can say, I feel like I'm still at the same level of ability, but I'm more confident in what I'm able to do. You can see that's selected a little bit more. And then you have improvement, the green. So we see that students are consistently indicating that they are improving at least a little, more so a lot, across every NACE competency. Even though these are short projects, they are impactful ones, especially when it comes to professionalism. We've also been hearing from a lot of our partners lately that's something that employers are having conversations about. Wishing that students were coming to the career fair or their internship or even starting their full-time job with a little more professional polish. So you can highlight to those employers. If you start engaging our students in micro internships starting in their first or second year, not only are you accomplishing all these other goals in terms of expanding your pipeline and building awareness and positivity about your brand, but you are building your own more professional talent pool to hire from. On the employer side of things, we also see some really nice feedback. We are seeing that over 97% of the time, micro interns are meeting or exceeding expectations. So even though this is a really short and efficient application process, the combination of that profile and the answer to that question, why should we select you, is connecting employers with quality talent. They're seeing that these micro interns are meeting or exceeding more often expectations, and that's something really exciting for these employers to see too. There are also some really nice longer term impacts for employers when it comes to micro internships. One is in terms of access. Something we are very proud of at Parker Dewey is the fact that over 80% of those selected for micro interns, not just those who have created accounts, but the folks who actually get picked, over 80% of them are from historically underrepresented populations in the workplace. And we're especially proud of that when you compare it to paid traditional internships overall. So even though they're paid, which makes them accessible, barely more than a quarter are going to students from historically underrepresented populations. So the pay is eliminating one barrier, yes, but those students still may not have the time or the transportation or the level of familiarity necessary for them to arrange their other commitments. And micro internships give them the flexibility to do that exploration. Another thing that a lot of companies care about, especially in some very budgetary tight times, is the cost of things. So, as established before, there is a cost to engaging micro interns. Every one of these opportunities needs to be paid for that accessibility component. So, by no means is it free, but when you look at the outcomes, the talent they're able to engage, the confidence with which they're able to hire, the conversion rates, using micro internships is actually far more cost effective than a lot of other recruiting models. And then finally, there's a lot of savings just in the fact that they're not having to deal as much turnover when they use micro interns. When we look at recent graduates who have engaged in micro internships, 98%, it's a big number, are staying with their first full-time role for longer than a year. What we're seeing is even through these short experiences, students were able to say, this is a great company. I'd never thought of this before. I can see myself here for a while. Or alternatively, maybe with a short project, they realize, "Oh, this is where I thought I wanted to be, but this isn't actually a good fit for me long term." Either way, they're taking what they learned about themselves in the micro internship and thoughtfully applying it to their decision making so they're landing somewhere where they can grow and develop and it's going to be a better fit for a longer time. When you look at all recent graduates, less than half of them are staying in that first full-time role for longer than a year. So using micro internships is a really cost-effective way to reduce the cost spent on turnover. So, as promised, now that we've talked about all these benefits of micro internships, I want to take just a few minutes to talk about our education partnership options. We do have three of them, starting with our basic no-cost option. At our basic option, it's really all about making it easier for you to share this resource with your students and employers. Again, your students, because if they're not logging on and applying, they can't get the opportunities. But your employer engagement is also just as vital to make sure that those students are seeing consistent opportunities when they log on. So all partners get two landing pages, one page to share with their students and another page to share with their employers. They will also get access to a variety of marketing collateral to make it easy to spread the word. We are here to support with your efforts to spread the word to both students and employers. And we also have partner checklists. These are our best practices, the things that we've seen schools doing to be able to start to see some results and get some traction. We ask our basic level partners to complete those checklists. There are some things that should be done annually. And then every year after they've confirmed completion, you're able to request your Parker Dewey data. So you can know, are students creating accounts? Are they applying? Are they getting selected? What employers are engaging them for what type of projects? And you're also able to see any feedback that the micro intern or employer may have left. So these are those checklists. And again, you'll get these slides afterwards. But if you are a Parker Dewey partner, the best thing you can be doing is working on these checklists. So if you need any help or review of them, please do not hesitate to reach out or respond to the follow-up email you're going to get after this webinar. We also have a webinar we do with some level of regularity where we talk about some of the data. So to the question earlier, how competitive are these? How likely are my students to get selected? If you're a data nerd or just data curious and you want to dig into what behaviors lead to the most success, please don't hesitate to join us at this session. Again, you'll be able to see these links in the slides afterwards. But just want to reiterate again, I know we've already done some talking about this, that engaging students alone, unfortunately, isn't enough. Since it became possible for employers to feature projects to specific schools about in 2022, we have seen more and more employers who are making use of that feature. And most often, the thing that's dictating what schools they're featuring to is just awareness from that school. They want to reach that school's students. That school said, hey, my students are using Parker Dewey. And since that was their goal for the onset, they're featuring their projects to that school's students on the platform. So just a reminder that engaging your employers is important, which is why it's a big part of those checklists and the strategies we recommend for success. And employers come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. Alumni can be a great source for posting projects. Larger employers, of course, since the primary goal is recruiting, but this is also a great opportunity for local businesses and nonprofits. You might even be able to engage your grant writing team to be able to do something more intentional and exclusive, like a program. And we've even seen some schools who have hired their own students as micro interns for some really innovative purposes that have not only created beneficial opportunities for the students, but also some really nice outcomes for the schools. And just a sneak peek at some of the things we hit home in that partner playbook webinar about the best practices and data. This is just one example of two different schools. The one in green, they've been promoting to employers regularly. We know this because we can see it in the traffic to their employer-facing page. They're seeing employers that have created accounts from that page. They're seeing employers selecting their students, and their students are not only getting money, but they're getting experience and they're getting feedback. So that school knows how their students are performing compared to a school that established partnership and didn't really share it out. And partnership is free. You could do that. It really is a what you make of it. But this school didn't share the employer-facing link anywhere with their employers, so they weren't seeing any employers creating accounts from their page. And it's not impossible for that school's students to get selected. There has been one, and they've earned money, but they're not getting insights about their students' skills and how they're performing and getting knowledge to really be able to support their students in the same way that schools who are engaging their employers are. We also have lots of success stories that we always love to share. The ultimate goal of these micro internships is to go from being a micro intern to getting hired. Now, often that is at the same company that posted the micro internship. This is the way they're building the pipeline. It could be directly from micro intern to full time. It could be from micro intern to full time, but their goal is longer term hiring. Or it could be the micro intern engaged, they got great experience, they built new skills, they added to their resume, and that helped them become a more competitive candidate for an opportunity with a different company. Either way, our goal is to help you get your students from micro intern to hired. So please make sure you check out those success stories when the follow-up gets sent out. We also have some other partnership options. One of the other options is Parker Dewey Plus. This became available in summer of 2024, so it's relatively new. But the biggest difference is all that data about whether students are creating accounts, are they getting selected, with what companies, feedback, all those things that basic partners are able to see in the basic reports. You are able to see that on demand with Parker Dewey Plus. So if you send out a push to students and you want to know if it drove signups, you can see that, for example. With Parker Dewey Plus, there's also additional data and insights that you don't get to see with those basic reports. For example, one of the things you can see in Parker Dewey Plus is your students' accounts and applications. So if you see a student who has applied to quite a few projects, but they're struggling to be selected, you are able to see, well, is their profile complete? What do their applications look like? so you have context for how you can support that student in improving their chances of being selected. You also have the employer view built into Parker Dewey Plus, so it's easier for you to share this with employers. There's just lots of insights, and you get some employer engagement data that you're not able to see with the basic report. For example, if an employer creates an account from your employer-facing page, even if they haven't posted a project yet, Parker Dewey Plus users are aware of that history. They're also aware of any projects a company has ever posted where they specifically wanted to be available to that school's students. So there's a nice history of that employer engagement and interest too. There's also an impact report and honestly just so much data available with Parker Dewey Plus. So if you are interested in data, you want to be able to know what's happening in real time, would highly recommend considering the Parker Dewey Plus level. One of the other benefits of Parker Dewey Plus is getting to select one of your own students as a student ambassador. So this is about an 18-hour project. We've got it all templated out. And what they do in this project is they help promote Parker Dewey not only to their peers, but they do things like post on LinkedIn to highlight to employers, this is why this is a great way to reach me and my peers. This is why you should be engaging students in micro-internships. So it's taking some of that responsibility for promoting the platform off of your plate while simultaneously creating a paid professional experience for one of your students. That's right, it is paid. Parker Dewey Plus is a $2,000 a year subscription. Of that $2,000, $360 of it is earmarked to go to whichever student you select to act as your Parker Dewey student ambassador. Now, if you are interested in Parker Dewey Plus, but budgets are especially tight right now, also want to make sure folks are aware you may be eligible for Parker Dewey Plus access at no cost if you fall into a few categories. If your school already has a program, Parker Dewey Plus was likely included. Maybe a different department set the program up, but if you know there is a program and you want access, reach out to us. There's a good chance we'll be able to get that set up for you. If you are eligible for a Parker Dewey Run program, that might also have Parker Dewey Plus included for you at no cost. So such programs include the DeLuca program. This is available to all institutions in the state of Connecticut, the state of Florida, any HBCU, and members of the HSI Career Collaborative. Now, I often get follow-up questions, is that any HSI? No, it's a subset of HSIs. There's about 12 or 13 organizations in that collaborative, and some partners that are in that collaborative don't always know that their school is a part of it. So I would encourage you to go to their website if you're not sure if your school is part of the HSI Career Collaborative. But if you fall in any of those categories, your institution qualifies for the DeLuca program. There's some other exciting things that I want to share with you one-on-one, schedule an appointment. You can also have Parker Dewey Plus for free through May of 2026. Same goes if you are a public college or university in Kansas, if you are an institution, higher education institution in the state of Indiana, and then we have some details about the end dates for those folks. I think there is some wiggle room going on with the Parker Dewey Plus access for the Kansas folks. So I know it says through the end of 2025, and you all are probably thinking that's in 5 minutes, but I think there's some flexibility there. So if you are in a Kansas school, you don't have Parker Dewey Plus access yet, and you're interested in signing it up, don't let that keep you from reaching out. And then our third option is our program partnership option. Now, the reason why there is such a jump in price from the $2,000 a year to the 10K plus is because the big difference with the program is that the school is covering the cost for employers to engage students. So the reason why this can be really effective is getting rid of that pay barrier just for a few test projects can really help employers who might not have otherwise tried it recognize the benefits of using this as a recruiting tool. So if this is something folks are interested in, these are super customizable. You can decide which employers can use the funds, whether you want it to just be local employers, employers in a specific industry, maybe employers that employ alumni. Whatever it is, it's up to you. You could decide if the resulting projects are available to all of your students, just a subset of your students, to recent graduates, Everything is customized from the top to the bottom, and we make sure whatever rules you have established are enforced. So if you are interested in generating opportunities exclusively for your students, and maybe there's some sort of grant or donation or funds that are sitting there waiting to be used. I know with higher ed, there's no money for anything, and then all of a sudden there might be a pocket that you have to use in 5 minutes or it'll go away. If there's anything like that, consider establishing a Parker Dewey Micro-Internship program. Even a relatively small budget when it comes to micro interns can go a long way to creating opportunities for a lot of students. And again, the reason why there is that cost is because, for an example, $10,000 program, 8,000 of that is going to covering the cost of paying your students. So just wanted to clarify that. And the other things about the management, I already kind of covered this, but we are helping you market it. We are making sure that the rules you establish are followed. We're maintaining the dashboard so you're up to date about what is going on with your program. So really, we're just trying to make it as easy as humanly possible for your students to get these paid experiences by helping you create exclusive ones. Now, we could talk a lot about programs, and we do on a regular basis. So obviously, the November 19th session is in the past, but we do this webinar regularly, and our next session is going to be on March 18th. So if you are interested in doing a program, please don't feel like you have to wait until then. But we are always happy to connect with you, have those conversations. And if you want to see more case studies and your timeline is flexible, that March webinar would be a good one to go to. We also have regularly scheduled events for your students and employers. If you feel like, okay, this was helpful for a big picture, but I want to know exactly how to pitch this to my students, or exactly how to pitch this to my employers, or I just want to know what kind of feedback students are getting on their profiles, please don't hesitate to join us at any of these events too. We want you to feel confident and equipped with all the knowledge you need to be able to share this with all the audiences you engage in. So, as far as next steps go, I see about 60% of you saw that I have a poll up. Love that. Thank you for submitting. If you have not already filled out that poll, would love for you to respond to it. But as far as other next steps are, just think about your goals. Are you meeting with a lot of students who are struggling to get experience? If so, is it because they don't have time? Is it a lack of transportation? Is it a lack of ways to try things out earlier in their careers? Whatever it may be, there's a good chance that micro internships would help them overcome that hurdle. So connect with us. Tell us what you're struggling with. We can establish a partnership and we can discuss ways that we can help your institution with whatever your unique challenges or goals are. But really, the best way to do that is to share the information that we shared today, made easy in our partnership checklists with your stakeholders. And again, that includes students and employers. That employer piece, I know I sound like a broken record, but it is really crucial to make sure that there are consistent opportunities for your students. So really the next step is just continue the conversation. We are looking forward to helping however we can. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to connect today. I'm going to catch up on some of the questions in the chat, but before I do that, just to put a nice bow for the recording, I hope that this was helpful, and we look forward to continuing the conversation and supporting your efforts.